Hi, and welcome everybody. We're incredibly excited to be here for our final live event of the Launching Innovation in Schools MOOC. For those of you who are joining us online simultaneously as we're here, we're super grateful for you making time, whether it's 6 a.m. in Australia or 10 p.m. in Turkey or 2:30 in the afternoon here in the Boston area. And we're incredibly grateful to have two of our learners and co-participants in the course with us, Janet from Brookline and Ganja from Ankara, Turkey, to be able to talk a little bit about their learning experiences and the kinds of things that they're working on in terms of launching innovation in their own schools. There's also a chat window that's associated with the live chat. So if you're here with us simultaneously, please do say hello in that window and tell us a little bit about who you are and where you're from. And if you want to, something about the role that the school that you're in or something that you've been working on while you're here. And if you're watching this afterwards as a recording, then we're super grateful that you made some time to join us today. The whole purpose of this wrap-up is just to invite a couple of learners from our course to talk about the kinds of things that they've been working on, to invite all of you who are here simultaneously with us online to talk a little bit about whatever sort of final questions that you have as we're wrapping up the course, or the things that you're most excited that you've had a chance to think about, or the things that you're working on that you want to be able to share. And we'll go from there. Thea online invites us to Europe for a convention or a workshop, and we'll have to follow up with Thea about being able to do that. Ganja is the closest one, even partially in Europe right now, so she may be the one that has to represent us. So thanks everyone for joining us and being here. Why don't we do some introductions? Ganja, do you want to just tell us a little bit about who you are and what your role in your school is, and then maybe to get to know you a little better, sort of one thing that you're going to be working on this week so we can get to know the kinds of things that you do.
Okay, hi to everyone. I'm from Ankara, Turkey, and I'm just a biology teacher in TED Ankara College in the high school level. And I'm just teaching for 9 years, I guess. And the one thing that I'm going to do in the school is just teaching at first, with lots of the biology classes, the ESS class, the environmental systems and societies, the health class. So I just have lots of different types of classes. In addition to that, we are going to implement the AS and the A-level curriculum of the Cambridge. So we are going to just match it with our own national curriculum. So I'm just working about that part as well. So that is the new thing that I will work on today. Not today, but tomorrow. So that is me.
That's great. So the innovations being taking some biology and environmental science courses and trying to sort of match up your local Turkish curriculum with some of these other kind of European-wide, global-wide standards. That's really cool. Great. Well, it's good. We're fortunately very science-themed here today, which is appropriate for MIT. Janet, you want to tell us a little bit about your role?
Sure. Hi, everybody. My name's Janet McNeil. I'm the K-8 science coordinator for the Brookline Public Schools, just west of Boston, Massachusetts, right near Justin. And I do really everything related to K-8 science. We have 9 schools, so I work with teachers to develop curriculum, do professional learning, buy all kinds of cool science stuff. So my role takes many different lenses, and I have many different hats. This week, one thing I'm working on is developing some professional learning for 6th grade teachers next week. And I'm going to try something different based on what I learned in this class. Going to try a little Ed Camp kind of innovative learning next week. So I asked them the kinds of things they want to work on, and we're going to give it a whirl. There's Ed Camp Boston on this coming Saturday. So I'm going to kind of learn at the last minute what that's all about, but we'll see how it goes. Choice and voice. We'll put it in action.
Very cool. So I'm glad that you got a chance to connect with Dan Callahan who is featured in this course and is one of the Ed Camp leaders. And I'm hoping that he'll be at Ed Camp Boston So if you haven't had a chance yet to meet Dan in person, he's a terrific guy. Well, good. Well, Janet, maybe this is related to what you're talking about now, but do you want to tell us a little bit about what what you've been working on in terms of your final assignment for this course? What was the initial action plan that you put together? What was the problem of practice? How have you been thinking about addressing it? What did you put together for your sort of final submission for this course?
Yeah, so started out really kind of at the 10,000 foot level, I think, with this course, thinking about a vision of what I wanted teaching and learning to look like at the district level, which was a great exercise. I had like 10 pages filled with ideas in my notebook. Then as the course progressed, kind of realized, well, that's something that's my vision. It's not a shared vision. There are lots of other people that need to be involved in that. And a little bit of that is kind of out of my hands. So what is something that's more manageable for me to work on that I could actually grapple with and maybe make some headway with? So what I ended up with was a problem of practice around our K-5 science curriculum. We've developed new curriculum over the last 8 years to meet the new standards. We have new standards here in Massachusetts based on the next generation science standards. And I've been doing some professional development with K-5 teachers, about 3 hours a year per grade level. Got that all rolled out, but there's still a lot. As you can imagine, 3 hours per year is just not enough when you're rolling out an energy unit for 5th grade, say. And the barrier that I've run up against is my professional development for K-5 was canceled this year, and I'm not sure if that's actually going to ever come back. So I'm trying to think creatively and innovatively about ways that I can provide the K-5 teachers with the content background, the just, ways to mess around with the materials themselves so that they learn and get excited about it in order to teach the kids and get them excited about it. And so as part of my final action plan, really coming up with some ideas about creating modules. Maybe they're online modules, maybe they're different topic modules on Saturdays, all provided for graduate credit to entice people to take the courses, maybe some blended courses. So just really trying to think kind of outside the box and how I can get that professional learning to teachers with this barrier that's been set in my way. So it's all about persistence and thinking creatively and not letting things really stop and halt the work. So that's kind of what I ended up with.
That's terrific. Are there some allies that you sort of identified throughout the course, like who, as you sort of thought about some of the asset mapping and things like that, who are some of the sort of stakeholders or other folks that you can bring on to tackle this challenge?
There are, but I'm really taking the whole teacher to teacher teaching and learning to heart. So I'm hence the EdCamp model. And I'm also thinking about how can I get teachers who are doing some of this work really well, at elementary and middle school levels, and bring them on as teacher leaders to kind of empower them to become leaders to help me do this professional learning and on many levels, promote them as leaders and to get that teacher to teacher learning going on. So kind of looking at it from a whole bunch of different perspectives.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, it sounds like one shift there might be, one way to think about this would be, well, I'm a district coordinator and here are some teachers who I need to help build their capacity. So I've got to figure out how to lift them up, which is certainly probably part of the task. But then another way to think about it is, well, there's actually a whole bunch of us who have some real expertise here. And in fact, our teachers are probably more likely to learn from one another as well. So how do I identify the people who are sort of, a little bit further ahead in this process and give them find out ways to give them time, energy, inspiration to be able to share with one another. Arnoud Evers, who I think is from the Netherlands, asked the question, like, how, in your particular district, how much do you think like teachers are used to these kinds of leadership roles? Is this going to be are you going to be asking them to take on new kinds of roles that they haven't done before, or do you think this sort of fits within the culture of what's already going on in these schools?
So I think it's definitely part of our culture. I've done this in the past, kind of bringing teachers along to help me develop courses and then facilitate them, and it's worked really well. But I want to do more of it because I see the value in that, and we've tried some other things, teacher grade level facilitators in science that we had funding for 1 year, and then we didn't have the funding anymore. So it's got to be consistent. It's got to entice those people to want to do it and to stick with it. So I think there are a whole bunch of different things that kind of go into play with that. But it's not new. It's just how to make it sustainable, I think, across the board, and to just really make it a natural part of what we do.
Yeah, good. That sort of part of the innovation is just making the practice be more regular, more sustainable, more a frequent part of what's going on. Cool. Ganja, do you want to talk a little bit about what your final assignment was and the project that what was the problem of practice that you were tackling, and what were some of the sort of main strategies that you've been trying to make some progress on it?
Okay. Mine was about increasing the mastery goals, tendency of the students to have more mastery goals rather than the performance goals. It was my aim is to increase it because the most important thing for the students and the parents is the GPA of the students. So the grades that they were taking through the exam is the only outcome for most of the parents and the students because of entering to the university. So we have a huge university exam. It has 2 parts, but 3 hours for each. So it is kind of important to just have high marks from them, and it goes from the high GPA from the high school. So that is why when you just you are just teaching something, but this is not included in the exam. So most of the students are not even just interested as much as they were when it is important. It is going to be asked in the exam. So for increasing their understanding, for increasing their motivation, for increasing their willing to learn, I think increasing the mastery goal is one of the important aspects of the teaching for me. So at first, in the very beginning of the lessons and in the course, it was just my vision was only related within the class. So it was just increasing the motivation of the students, just making the classroom environments enjoyable and comfortable, and everything was related with me. Then I just understand the importance of the teacher leadership, and there is something that is called as the teacher leadership. So that is kind of a huge thing for me. And throughout the course, I figured out about the importance of the society, importance of the community. And I think it's maybe because of me, there are lots of things going on within the school, and I was just focused on within the classroom. So the administration part, the parent part, and the teacher teams, that was always there, but I wasn't aware of it. That's what my main reflection of the course for me at first. Throughout the course, I just moved from the within the classroom focus to the outside of the classroom. So at first, just talking with the administration about the importance of the mastery goals, and I heard about the Universal Design for Learning, UDL, I guess, the program. So I would like to have a presentation or just professional development seminar related with that. So in the next week, I'm going to talk with the administration. I just arranged the meeting. At first, I just talked about it within the department meetings we have for one per each week. And I just talked with my other colleagues. We are just 20 biology teachers within our department. So that's
how many did you say?
20 within a department.
That's a big department, wow.
And we have 2,000 students in the high school. So we are really a large school. So it is nice to have a pilot study within that context. So since we have lots of classrooms, we can try lots of different things. So that is that's my intention throughout the course. So one of the things I'm just working on is the meeting and how to present the UDL to the administration and relate it with the motivational goals. So that is just the ongoing thing. And then I don't think that just making it just too structured just by myself is the correct thing. So at first we need a teacher team from different subject area, the teachers that are just having the same class from different subject area. So arranging this with the administration, or just I need some help that in that part from the administration. And after that, just having that team, we need some resources and the time that you just taught us throughout the course. And then the assessment parts, I just work a lot about the assessment parts, the feedback part from the students, the small quizzes, and that is all. I'm just kind of not sure about whether I'm too focused or it is too broad, having just mastery goals. Maybe it's better to focus on the physical modeling, the computer animation. So what are the techniques or the instructional tools that we need to use within the classroom? And what are the support parts that I'm just waiting from the administration? Maybe just having the small steps. I'm just not sure about that part. But still, knowing that there is a teacher leadership and I can just initiate something within the school is kind of motivating for me and exciting for me. So that is kind of the plan I'm just working on. That is my problem of practice.
Terrific. It sounds incredibly ambitious. Really cool. Can you tell us sort of how have your administration received this thus far? Like what kind of reception have you gotten from either from your administrators or from other teachers, or how do you feel like people are reacting thus far to your efforts?
They're open-minded about trying new things, and if it is good for the students, if they believe that that is some that will have some beneficial outcomes for the students and for the parents overall, I think they will be helpful for us. And they are just all the time they're asking whether we need some professional development. So it's kind of helpful in that context. And so what I will do is just I want something. Just focus on, just for the first time I will tell that I'm going to be educated about this part, and I'm sure that they will be helpful for me.
You, one of the things that I heard in your description was just some really interesting questions in there about things like, two that I heard was, one is sort of like, what's the right sort of team to be addressing some of these things? So you might say, that one right place to start would be, actually, why don't we get some of these things going just with like 3 or 4 biology teachers who teach the same subjects that I do. So trying to have the innovation be, sort of really kind of contained within a like-minded group of people tackling the same thing. Another thing that you described a little bit was, oh, maybe we should get some people across different subjects, but within the same grade level, sort of, something like universal design for learning could apply, or mastery goals could apply to a couple of different subject areas. Maybe we should pull some of those things together. And then these questions of how broadly scoped you should be versus how narrowly scoped you should be. Those seem like really good. Those are the kinds of questions that I think don't necessarily have any kind of right answers. They're probably situated within the context that you're in. Like some of the ways that I would think about answering those questions would be in terms of who to work with. I'd be really interested in just gathering whomever seems to be the coalition of the willing. So if it's the other people in your biology department who are really fired up about things, then that's probably the right group to work with. If it's the other people across disciplines who are the right group, one of the things in this that Peter and I have tried to present in this work is that success usually breeds success. And success usually creates new opportunities for more resources. If you can get something working a little bit anywhere, then it's easier to go back to the administration and say, hey, look, like there were 4 of us in biology who were doing this thing really well. Maybe this is something that we should do with the rest of the biology teachers or with the whole science faculty or whatever else. And then in terms of scope, I think generally speaking, the narrower your scope is, the easier it will be to sync up on things and to work together on things. But also the broader the scope is, to some extent, the more room people can find for themselves in the work. So part of that also might be guided by, how enthusiastic people are, in your department or whichever this group is. Another place to make a distinction, you might make a distinction between being, what's the scope of the stuff that you're going to try to learn about, and then what's the scope of the stuff that you're going to try to implement. So you might come up with like a teacher study group that's thinking about universal design for learning pretty broadly, but then you pick 1 week in April that you're all going to try like one specific strategy together. So that's sort of a combination of more broadly scoped or more narrowly scoped kinds of things to think about. But those seem like really good questions to be wrestling with. And also, the other thing that I think Peter and I hope that people would get is like, in a lot of cases, the answers to those questions is in the doing of them. Like you won't really know what the right group of people is to work with until you try to get a group of people and get them started, and then it'll be the right group of people to work with. So Andrew and Arnaud are both supportive of going for the easy early win, and then being patient to bring skeptical folks along. So that sounds great. Janet, and both Ganja talked a little bit about sort of assessment and knowing that in her case she has some of these sort of scores and assessment as things to look at. Like Janet, in your context, how are you thinking about sort of assessing your progress in these kinds of efforts? Like how will you know that the kinds of things you're implementing for more kind of teacher voice and choice in learning is working? Like what are the assessment outcomes that matter to you the most?
Yeah, so I think that was really helpful to think about during this course. Since we've been rolling out these units for 6 or 7, 8 years, I'm kicking myself now for not collecting more data originally, but that's all gone. So work from where we are, right?
Yep.
I have been collecting data from science notebooks, which I think student work is one of the best pieces of evidence we can gather, because it really does tell you what the student understanding is and what the instruction was really. So continuing to look at student work, I think, is really helpful. And that was it's kind of one of the really center pieces of professional development that I like to do, is to have teachers sit down in grade level groups, teachers they don't normally work with. Since we have 9 schools, they don't really see each other a lot across the district, and to look at the student work and look for evidence of the understanding. Is it there? Is it not? Is it kind of there? What did you do to get kids there? So, sharing that and kind of cross-pollinating those ideas. So definitely student work. I'd love to do some surveys of students themselves. When we first started this, I heard things like, science is really boring. I hate science. And of course, that just throws me into a tailspin because science is so fun and, can be the vehicle for getting kids to want to read and write and do math and all that stuff. So surveying students, about what they're learning and how they're learning it, how they feel about themselves as scientists, I think is really kind of cool. And then to survey the teachers too, and to keep getting, that's another piece that I really miss when I meet with them, is to check in and say, how is it going? How are these units, what's working really well? What's not working really well? The materials working? Are they, do you need more professional learning on different strategies like inquiry or whatever? So really kind of tapping into different people with different tools, I think is great. And I'm using Twitter as an assessment tool, I have to say. I'm totally into Twitter, and when people tweet out things, I can see what's happening.
It gives you that kind of live look inside people's classrooms, or people thinking, or what they're working on. And
and it helps me celebrate the cool things and sometimes innovative things that are going on out there, because I retweet them and put a little comment. And so that's been really a successful way of kind of starting perhaps the seeds of some innovation and some great stuff. So
one of the things I love hearing about what you say is the sort of notion of like, I wish we had been doing more assessment as we going along, and saying, but wait a minute, I have these student notebooks that we've been collecting forever. I think that kind of pattern of thinking can be super common in thinking through this field, that we think, what can we, that we actually do have stuff lying around. Like schools often do find ways of collecting student work in various formats, especially now that so much of it is kind of digitally mediated. And there are things that are in teachers' email accounts, things that are in old Google Classroom accounts or old Microsoft OneNote notebooks or whatever it is. And I think you're absolutely right that for almost any any instructional improvement initiative we have, the proof of the pudding is in student thinking. In the end of all this work, like the only reason for the state of Massachusetts to roll out new standards, the only reason for you and the teachers that you're working with to be part of these initiatives is so that we can go back to those student notebooks and say, hey, guess what? Like the ones from 2017, 2018, 2019, they're richer in these 1 or 2, 3 ways than the ones from 2013, 14, and 15. And thinking about how we can see that, nurture that, encourage that, I think is just so important for trying to figure out whether the kinds of things we're doing are working. And the other thing I love about what you said is just, it's never too late. Like, it doesn't matter where we were. All right, like we wish we did more of that. Great. What a terrific opportunity for growth. Now we can do more of it.
Right.
So never too late. Well, I'd love to hear from each of you just about, what were some of the parts of the course that you found most helpful in thinking about your particular problems of practice and sort of initial assessment plans? Like what specific activities or what specific exercises or readings or whatever it was in the course sort of helped unlock some of your thinking around these things? Ganja, I don't know if you have a few things that you feel like were most useful to you.
Yeah, totally Unit 4. Just for me, the communication, the advices related with the communication, and is it the iceberg or the do I recall it correctly?
Yep. Iceberg, yep.
The iceberg part, and also in addition to that, focusing on the positive while creating the vision. Mm-hmm. That is something we, in Turkish culture, we always just focus on the negative things. So, that is kind of different, but it's beneficial once you apply it, and once I think you're accustomed to it, I can see that it is more beneficial, and it's easy to engage everyone to the positive attitudes rather than the negativity. So the importance of that is just what I learned from this course as well, and also the bringing student in part is just one of the main things that I just learn and kind of become aware of after this course. And those are the things that are really helpful for me throughout the course.
That's great. That stuff that Peter included about sort of working together and communication, a lot of that was new to me too. That was one of the sort of great learning opportunities that I had during this course. So that was really fun for me. One of the ways that I've been summarizing some of those things is just the idea that, like, in most organizations, work gets done by teams of people. And one of the main things that teams of people have to be able to do is communicate well. They have to be able to have conversations with one another. It's one of the sort of core functional areas of teams is to talk. And so the quality of our talk can make a huge difference in the quality of work that we do together and how innovations move forward. So yeah, I agree. That was stuff that was a lot of great learning for me as well. How about you, Janet? What were some of the things in the course that proved to be most helpful for you?
So I think the things that really struck home with me were being able to really go into some of the districts and hear from people what they were doing and what was happening. Mm-hmm. I was just so inspired. Like Shrewsbury, I mean, what they're doing there with their PD pathways, it really got me thinking in a different way, leading me toward these individual modules and thinking about teachers maybe choosing what they want to learn about.
Yeah.
The school in Cambridge, Benjamin Banneker, where they actually do a lot of integration. And these are all local schools, so I definitely am going to go call them at least and see if I can go visit, which is really cool. So those were really inspirational. I loved those videos. And also like Ganja said, the whole discussion about productive discussions I thought was really intriguing. And that's where I would like to actually delve into that more and find out more about how we do that. How do we go beyond polite and tough conversations to really get into those meaningful dialogues. As one person doing those activities, that was so helpful to actually take a conversation and analyze it and think about what I was thinking and how that affected the conversation. But how do you do that in a meeting that you're not running? How do you get other people to think that way so that you can get beyond the polite? So anyway, these are just some questions that I have, because it's really important, like you said, to have really meaningful communication, and we don't have those. Mm-hmm. We don't have that kind of dialogue that I feel we need to actually get where we need to go. So also thinking about blind spots, that was a really kind of eye-opener to me, thinking about what my blind spots are and how I can maybe help other people think about blind spots as well. So a lot to think about.
That's great. Yeah. That's great. I can say that for some of those kinds of things, Peter Senge has a couple of books that he's written. The Fifth Discipline is a terrific resource about that that's been enjoyed by many millions around the world. And he has another book called Schools That Learn, which was written by a bunch of folks who are sort of interested in systems thinking and interested in the some of the work that Peter and his colleagues developed, but really specifically in school context. So those, if there in a future version of the course, we might make those more kind of ancillary texts to the book, because they have some great resources around that. Actually, one of I'll post this in the chat. One of Peter's colleagues at the Sloan School, who's a friend of mine, has a new book which is coming out called Breaking Through Gridlock: The Power of Conversation in a Polarized World, which is another resource around how people talk with one another. And there's a whole bunch of folks at MIT who have been really interested in studying and making sense of that over time. So I'd love to hear what are some parts of the course that you hope that we would spend more time on in the future if we had. What are some things that we could do better in the future that you'd like to see changed? What are some things that we could have gone deeper on? What are you hoping to learn more about? It would be great to get some feedback on that. So Ganja, I don't know if you have ideas about what you might like to learn more about.
As I said, the most interesting and the helpful part was the total Unit 4. So maybe it can be broadened up, case studies, maybe just live events from some meetings, and what is going right and what kind of conversation is that. Maybe more activities related with data gathering or the perception part. And for me, it was just all about broadening the Unit 4.
Great, very cool. Janet, what thoughts do you have?
So in addition to the kind of deepening that whole productive discussion part, I think even more scenarios from schools, maybe Design 39 that I was lucky enough to go see during the exhibition in San Diego, which again was totally inspirational. And I don't know if there's a way to help people think about kind of getting past the frustration, right? Sometimes I know we talked a little bit about that, but just to keep moving forward in the face of barriers. And I think a great message that I did get from the course was that, it doesn't have to be big what we do. It's just do something, right? Do a little something, make some headway, talk to some people, share some ideas. So that was a great message for me. I tend to be a let's do it all at once, get impatient kind of thing. So that was even more of that might help people.
That's great. Yeah, we could add a self-care part of the course. We could say for all of the innovators who are out there who are going to be working on this for a long time, there's probably going to be some frustrations and some roadblocks along the way. So we could add some guided meditation exercises or some other kinds of ways that people
therapy circle somewhere.
Yeah, therapy circles. Well, definitely. I mean, I've been doing some of that Peter and I together, and then independently, I've been doing some of the left-hand column casework. And I know you guys did that, online, kind of on your own, probably in most cases. Maybe some people in learning circles did that in groups, but it definitely feels like people definitely describe it as therapeutic when they're doing it with someone. When you sit down with someone else sitting next to you and you talk through a conversation that didn't go well, and someone asks you some questions about it and helps you reflect on it. I mean, people find that really therapeutic in some ways. So that's good. Arnold has a great question about, how do we transition from innovation to practice? I mean, interesting, like one of the challenges of, one of the interesting features of innovation is something is innovative only when it's new. And then when we get, hopefully the innovations that we work just become part of our practice. They just become the things that we do day in and day out, and try to sustain that work over time. Hopefully, that new innovations take up a lot of our time as we get started. But part of the job of innovation is to figure out how to make them feel more manageable. A big thing that I've been talking about with some colleagues is trying to figure out, like, what are the things that we get rid of to make room for new innovations. In the United States, there's currently a really well-known thinker. I think her name is Marie Kondo, but she's a Japanese American woman who helps people clean their houses. She goes through and helps people throw away all the stuff that accumulates there. And she says if there's something, if you go through your closet and there's something that doesn't spark joy, then you got to throw it out. You don't need it anymore. And I've been joking with some education people who work on education innovation that more schools need to have kind of Marie Kondo ceremonies. You need to, like, every time you want to start something new, another thing to do is to go through what you're working on and try to figure out, like, what can we throw out? What can we stop doing that's no longer a good use of our time? What's something that we can teach less of in order to be able to teach more of something else? So in terms of sustaining innovation, that's something that I've been thinking about for some time. Well, no, Ganja and Janet, I don't know if you guys have any other questions or things that you've been thinking about in these conversations, either of each other's projects or some things from the course or so forth, or if there are other people who are online in the live chat who have additional questions that they want to chat about for a little bit. Well, good. Well, I'm incredibly grateful for folks who are spending some time here together with us this afternoon. Incredibly grateful to you, Ganja and Janet, for taking some of your afternoon to hang out with us and talk about some of the things that you've been working on. For everybody who's here and watching this week, some of my very favorite things to do have been to go to the I Used to Think, But Now I Think forum. In the MOOC, there are maybe 50 folks who have started posts there, and some people replying and so forth. And it's a really great opportunity to, in very concise ways, sort of see how people's thinking is changing over the course of the course. And there's lots of great sort of positive insights, some of which echo things that I've brought up today. The idea that people saying, well, I used to think that, anytime I wanted to change something, I had to plan it out entirely out in advance. But now I realize that I can try and iterate as I go along. I used to think that there are certain people in schools whose job it was to do innovation, and now I think that it's everyone's job, or everyone can take on the responsibility to take steps to make learning better for students. Lots of great I used to thinks, but now I thinks within there, and a bunch of great examples too of people's final projects and final assessments. So I hope folks will take a time to look around there and be inspired by those. But we're super grateful for everyone who participated in the course in any way. Ganja and Janet, thanks so much for Janet taking some time out of the middle of your day, and Ganja for staying up late so you could hang out with us from Ankara. And I hope you both will join us if you're interested for the Design Thinking for Leading and Learning course that we're starting in a couple weeks on March 21st, and maybe other folks will as well. So thanks so much for spending some time with us this evening or this afternoon. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Bye, Janet. Bye, Ganja. All right. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. And I hope you guys all have a great afternoon from wherever you are. Take care.